Why is it so difficult to go back to IBM?
That's a really difficult question. I think, you know, once you've, I spent 15 years in large companies, so I understand large companies and I know how that model works. But I think, you know, once you've been an entrepreneur, once you've done something, you want to say, I can do this again. It's partly foolish, but I think there's an element of folly without which you cannot really be an entrepreneur. You've got to really believe, and that belief is not about something that's based purely on fact. You know there are facts, but somewhere along the way you need to have that little bit of, you know, foolishness that I can do it. And somewhere in my mind, I think I wanted to do that more than go back and just say, I have a big job in a large company. I mean, like I said, I have great respect for most of the people. They still want me to be their partner, etc. But I think this is more a choice to go back and say, I want to try and do something again, than not go back to IBM.
So once you've tasted that, it's hard to get back to normal life. First question.
That's one way of putting it.
Hello, thank you for all three guest speakers for such insightful presentations. My name is Amanda. I want to pose the question to Mr. Shankar. Just now you mentioned that you actually sell off your company to IBM. So I'm curious as to how do you know when do you want to sell off your company or license your company, license your technology to other companies, since you put in a lot of effort to set up the company, and why do you want to sell off when you are the one who thought of the ideas and actually gone through the whole effort of setting up a company and letting everyone know your company?
I have to say this is the hardest question I've ever been asked in my life. Seriously, it's a very good question. I need to think. I think there are a couple of things, right? One is, I'm going to answer the question in retrospect, meaning as I stand today. Not why I did it at that time, but then you'll probably understand why I did it at that time, because I didn't know that. When I sold it, I think, what's happened as a result of my selling it is that I think there's been a lot of new belief about how good what we did in Red Bull was. It was almost as if IBM was giving you a stamp of recognition. And when we were Red Bull and we were small and we were trying to do something, it was good and there were people who knew we were good, but suddenly the world changed the way they looked at this whole thing. Even when I went into a client saying, I'm now Red Bull, part of IBM, it changed. When I now go and talk to somebody and say, can you give me some funding to start a new company, their outlook on me has changed. Suddenly everything about this has changed because the world's largest technology firm felt that I ran a company that was important enough to buy. So it has its rewards in ways which may not necessarily look logical in the question that you're asking. But at that point of time, there was also, I think, a couple of factors. One is, it was 2008 when IBM started talking to us, and I had no idea which way the world would go. It was the beginning of the financial crisis. I had an obligation to 55 people, and the company could, if world economy had gone down, we could have gone down with it for no fault of ours. And I just felt that it was good risk management and prudent stuff to say, let me hedge my own financial future, but also the financial future of all my employees in doing this stuff. It's always a hard decision, but like I said, 2 years down the road, I think everything about it was right. I learned a lot in those 2 years in IBM as well. Sometimes you've got to give up your baby if you want the baby to grow. You have to. And there's this very famous story of a sports coach in India who really trained one of India's finest runners. Came from the backwaters of Kerala. And after she came within 1/100th of a second to winning a gold medal, she was very young, and they said you should go to a coach in the US for training. This is 1984. And the coach didn't let her go, she didn't want to go. She never won anything in her life again. Sometimes you have to know that there is somebody who can make something bigger, better out of it. And I think I would also had that realization at that time.
Thank you.
I have to say, at about 55, there's a lot of growing pains as well. When a company is about 55 in size, I would imagine I had a company before that grew from nothing to about 400 people. So I went through the period of 55 people. So it was like, growing pains was like painful. And you came to a point where you didn't really know what to do with the company. And your skills are entrepreneurial. And to bring it from a small company to the next level, like a big company, it's a pain, it's not what you love to do. That was what happened to me. And I felt that, you know, another company coming to take over the company was like a release to me. You know, I can do something that I like at last. To start small things, to be entrepreneur, to, you know, to run like a spider rather than do what I like.
Certainly there's a different phase of the journey, 0 to 10, 10 to 50, 50
yeah,
to
it's
500.
different, yeah. Next question.
Hi, I'm sorry, I just had a short build-up question to what Amanda asked earlier. I just want to ask, was there a change in the rate of innovation for your company? As in, like, at first, when you're a small company, I suppose if you're building from scratch, the growth is somewhat exponential. But then when you move into IBM, did it like slow, or did it continue to grow, like at a quicker pace, like with the increased resources and all?
Okay, the next question has to absolutely be addressed to those two people out here, okay? Obviously, we grew much faster inside IBM than we did on our own, simply because suddenly we went from trying to call on people, the 30, 40, 100 clients that we could, to having 5,000 IBM salesmen saying, can you come and talk to this client, that client wants to meet you, this guy wants to meet you. So we never slept, and you know, we kind of grew massively. And that's, I think, definitely the nice part of it. But any large company is a bureaucracy. They have process, they have something that they have to do. So that part of it, see, you must understand, a large company exists for a very different reason from a small company. What Greg is doing is fundamentally game-changing, and you know, that's what small companies do. We do game-changing things. Today, a lot of large companies do not want to pay for that innovation inside themselves. They would rather say, you take the pain, and I will pay you 5, 10, 50, 100, whatever millions to buy that company, because I then know that it's already worked in the marketplace. And that's... Yeah, inorganic growth is really the way they go. Because here is what somebody told me in IBM. They said, you know, when I went and asked for $2 million to actually go and develop a new product inside IBM, they said, you know, if you ask for $2 million, then it's going to go to my OPEX, and my results this quarter will get affected. Then I have to go and explain to some analyst why it happened. But if they spent $20 million buying a firm which actually did the same thing, it will go into some budget, get depreciated over 7 years, and it will never show up. And it will be seen as a strategic decision. So I think, you know, it's just a large company is not today an engine for innovation. But I'd like to hear, I mean, I think Norma would have a very different, or Greg might have a very different perspective on this question.
I want to say that for most entrepreneurs, right, the difficulty is not about having new ideas, because we've got like ideas pop up in our head almost, you know, every day. Everything we see is an idea that we can go do something about. And one of the toughest things for entrepreneurs is that to stick to something and to make it really, really work, you know, before you change, you know. That to me was, you know, a revelation, because like earlier this week, you know, one of my co-founders, I said, look, for the first time in my life, you know, and I've known this person for the last, I suppose 15 years, I said, I'm saying to you, we're going to stick to the knitting now. And he says, my goodness, I never heard you ever say this. For, you know, you are like an idea a day, and you know, tomorrow you want to come up with a new product, a new service, and he's the one that's always saying, you know, let's complete this, complete this. So for entrepreneurs, actually, maybe that was underlying one of the reasons why, you know, Suresh decided. I mean, you know, he's come to a point where he's probably popping new ideas, and he has to go do this thing, conquer new terrain, you know. And I think that's why, to some extent, you know, people like us cannot. We live in large corporations, and I was in very large corporations. At the end, you keep stepping on everyone's toes because you want to change everything around you, and you know, because we're about change, and then people are not about change always, because people tend to be more risk adverse unless you go to an organization that says, change. And there are fewer of those around, and they rather pay premium to find a company that has experimented, lost, and pay you the money and buy you over. They rather do that, and that's just the nature of the way things are.
I think if I were to add, I think as an entrepreneur, the key is you are actually answerable to the shareholder at the end of the day if they give you money. So maximizing shareholder return, whether it's an M&A exit or IPO exit, and everybody knows today IPO exit is very difficult. Facebook didn't do well, the Zynga didn't do well, the share. Okay, so the next company trying to go IPO will be even harder. But M&A today, primarily cash, especially in the US market, which I'm following. So, and also in the technology business, there's a window. You have the best technology, but they cannot guarantee 2 years from now yours is still the best. And also by partnering with a large company, they give you a customer base that you can never dream of. So I think these are the pointers. Yeah.
Wilson?
Yes. Hi, this is addressed to all three speakers today. I was wondering, when you all actually started your businesses, do you actually have, let's say, an exit strategy in mind? Do you all think, okay, let's say 5 years, I'm going to be able to sell my company off for this much money, maybe I'll license my product to something else. Do you all actually come in with an exit strategy in mind? Do you all have like this roadmap, how this company is going to be run, how is it going to evolve, or are you going to say, oh, let's just wing it?
Yes, I guess you must have an exit strategy when you go and pitch, because people are going to test how good you are, and can you continue to be the CEO? So you must have a vision, and I think that's rule number one. Secondly, is every investor is going to have a finite number of years right before they wanting exit from this investment, unless that fund is an evergreen fund. So other than that, you really have to think about this. And if you talk to tier 1 VC that you are addressing a small market, they might not be keen because their parameters is different. You talk to Temasek, for example, they say, if you do not need the 30 million, don't come and talk to us. If you talk to a subsidiary, Vertex Management, for example, you got different type of the investor. So you have to think what you want, okay? And the more prepared you are, the highest is the chance that you can get funded. And always it's good to use somebody's money to fund your business than your own money.
My own feeling is, I think Craig's absolutely right. When you go and try and take money from people, they want to know, will you make me money? Because they're in it for a financial thing. But as an entrepreneur, I think you've got to do, at least I believe that you've got to do something because you passionately believe in that cause. And, there's a great saying in sport, and I like sport and I keep using sporting analogies, saying, play with your eyes on the ball, not on the scoreboard. You've got to play with your eyes on the ball. You've got to want to create something great. You've got to say, I will succeed in the marketplace, I will do all of those things. I think the scoreboard, which is, do I get the revenues, the profits, and therefore somebody comes and says, I want to do it, is a consequence of playing well. See Roger Federer play, how often does he look up at the scoreboard? They don't need to look at the scoreboard. You want to play, you want to be the best. So, to me, it's a necessary part of an entrepreneurship. You can't be an entrepreneur without having some financial discipline and do that. But you want to be passionate about what it is. You want to say, listen, I'm going to build something great and hopefully make something that will. And it's not given to all of us to be, like a Steve Jobs kind of a game changer, but they're all people who do little things. So to say, I did something that was different.
I think there are different types of exits. Exit for the entrepreneur or the person who is hired to be a CEO. Entrepreneur and CEO doesn't necessarily mean the same thing. An exit for investors. So very often, you need to be very clear on your own lifespan as well as the investors that you have, because I think all investors, with the exception of certain type that I've also talked to, they want to know if they want to cash out, how do they cash out? This is very important. And as an individual, all of us have needs. Nobody wants to be in a company forever without having some cash out. Also, I mean, you know, we would like to maybe have a little bigger car, or you know, be able to take a little bit more of a holiday after working so hard. So I think these are life realities. So you must have a point where you work to that point, and based on that S-curve, both hopefully it matches the technology S-curve and the market S-curve, because there's also the market S-curve and the technology S-curve, the one that I showed you. That at that point you have peaked. You cannot take the company any further. Somebody else should come in and take it further, because they can do more than what you can do. And whatever value that you've had, it is maxed out. And at that point, that would be the right time to exit, because the party that buys it is buying it at the value that they can then bring it to the next curve. I mean, that's how it would work, yeah, theoretically.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for the speeches. I just have this question, which is that you said, Ms. Norma just said that entrepreneurs always have ideas because they always spot gaps, you know, things to be solved. But one of the very interesting characteristics is that you may have the initial way of solution, but when you actually embark on it, it's a whole new game. So I would expect that you meet very different problems. So I saw your example where if you want to bring your technology to underdeveloped countries, for example, how do you make them understand how it works? These are some of the issues. And to the other two entrepreneurs as well, I mean, you guys must have faced something very different that you never expected. So what advice do you give, you know, when you see such adversities? Thank you.
I guess you basically have to reinvent yourself again and again and again. When we first started 4.5 years ago, it wasn't this idea. But as we move along, we talk to people, we talk to customers, we talk to investors, everybody chips in. And you look at what the competition is doing and you adjust. It's along the line. I guess that is my approach. There's no hard and fast rule.
So you start off, you know, with one type of platform. Then before you know it, alamak, new platform come out, you know. They say, oh, now we're going to change platform. Then I said, oh my goodness, you know, guess what? You know, instead of making this in Shenzhen, oh, now going to make in Taiwan, now going to make in Malaysia. So entrepreneurship at the end of the day is about problem solving. It's like, you know, I like the analogy of the ship so much, because when you take a ship to the ocean, so, you know, Shankar's analogy was a bamboo. You keep watering, and then suddenly, you know, which is fantastic, you know. The other analogy is a ship, you know. When you go out to the ocean, do you know which storm is going to hit you, no matter what your charts say? Do you know where you blow to? Do you know whether you're going to be like Vasco da Gama, end up don't know where, and then at the end you founded a new whole continent? You don't know. So the spirit of entrepreneurship must be the willingness to try, and then when you see a new continent, believe there's a new continent, believe you founded something, you know. And I think that's what it must be, you know. And you know, I can tell you something, okay, some days you wake up in the middle of the night, and I think he would have faced it because he came from corporate, where, you know, the 3 months he has got no money in the bank. What am I doing? I had this fat check. What am I doing? And then you wake up sometimes really in cold sweat. But in faith, you push and you push and you push, and then suddenly this little shoot appears. And then you say, hey, you know what? It's not so bad after all. I'm going to make it. So it's all about adaptability, you know?
I think they said the two things right. You need the persistence to stay steadfast to your vision and say, I will keep going no matter what. I think you need I think you need to be not stubborn about, like, you know, when a storm hits saying, I'm going to do the same thing, you've got to say, I'll do different things that will work. And the key thing is the wisdom to know when you have to be persistent and when you have to change course. Because sometimes that storm is a false storm, it's pulling you off that thing, sometimes it's a real storm. So honestly, nothing in life can teach you what to do at that point of time. It is a feeling that, I mean, if I could tell you this, I mean, it would be worth $1 billion, because lots of VC firms, private equity, everybody wants to know the answer to that. I don't know the answer, but It really is saying, this time I'm going to be persistent, this time no, I think this is a real storm. I better change course and go around it. I think that is going to be the two key things that you need to really have. And, you know, I mean, everything she's saying, I'm going to let the cold sweat. I've woken up in bed with a cold sweat. Said, I can't do this one more month. All of this has happened to, I think, all of us. You know, oh my God, what happens if it fails? I mean, you have that really sinking feeling some days in the pit of your stomach. I think we've all been through that, and that's why you'll strangely find, I've never met the two of them, but you know, when they're talking, you'll say, yeah, that happened to me. It's a very similar journey. But it's a journey that if I went and advised you, you wouldn't do it. You have to go through it as well a little bit.
To add just one thing to your question is, I took these two statements quite seriously from Steve Jobs' biography. Simplicity is ultimate sophistication. You want to design a product, think along that line. And great artists copy. Good artists copy, great artists steal. But of course you steal with an art.
Sounds familiar. Question? Yes.
Okay, I actually wrote it down. Hi, speakers, I'm Minko, and I'm a graduating student, and I'll be joining a huge tech company, fortunately or unfortunately. However, I would like to be an entrepreneur someday. So my question is this: what are some skills that one should try to build in the corporate world that will put one in good state when one becomes an entrepreneur in the future? Thank you.
Well, in the corporate world,
Yes.
you have two.
Okay, are you going to join a bank? Oracle. Okay. You know, I'm trying to find the right thing to say. So, it's not about Oracle or IBM, but you know, you could have told me it's IBM, but you know, one is the corporate world. The corporate world values some things that are good for the corporate world. I mean, they value that people turn up, do what they're supposed to do it efficiently. You don't ask for a raise, you do more work, you know, you turn up harder the next day, you never question authority. So there is a part of that thing that, you know, corporates value. And it's not necessarily bad. Sometimes there is a discipline. I think we all went through, and I know that when you started the corporate, I started the corporate, I spent 15 years of my life there. You learn, you know, discipline of doing things. You learn the discipline of saying, I will turn up, I will do this job, I will get it done. If somebody says do it, it's my job to make sure it is done before I go home for the night. And I think those are the things you should focus on at the beginning of your career, because those skills are very useful even when you move to an unstructured entrepreneurial world. Now there will be some parts of this that will not jive with you know, but I think typically that comes later in life when you say, what the hell am I doing? So I won't tell you about that part of it. But there are many other good things that happen in corporate as well. They give you scale, you know, you learn enormous amounts. Because you'll suddenly be exposed to 20 things that you will not get, because entrepreneurs, like both of them have said, we want to be focused, we want to do one thing and do it well and get that. But an Oracle will do 18 things, you will learn more, it will give you opportunities to find out about 20 trends, all of that. So it gives you a great platform for learning. And I think that's something that you should also be looking at. And I think if you show that curiosity and learning, and if you show that dedication and discipline to getting the job done, you'll probably do well in corporate life. When you become dissatisfied in corporate life, then call me again and I'll tell you the second half of the story.
But one thing I'd like to add is, if you are working for a larger corporation, you have resources. When you become an entrepreneur, suddenly these resources go away. You don't have a CFO or full-time accountant. You look at a spreadsheet yourself to do projection. That may not be your skill, but somehow you are stuck in that doing. And as an entrepreneur, when you start to do multiple functions, you are kind of good in everything. That is an entrepreneur. And one word of advice is you actually have to kind of convince yourself this is a track you want to go. There's nothing wrong to work as an employee, frankly. Okay? But as you come up like myself for 10 years, just before I start this, I want to go back. Okay? But very difficult for executive search firm to position you, because just before I start, I was running Asia Pacific. I got 140 people. But after 8 years later, when I want to go back, it's very difficult because here I don't know how to position it. The CEO who interview you they are not sure whether you can stay, or it's a waste of their time because you might go back again, because it's very difficult. So you just have to be careful. And what a way to make money, not as an entrepreneur, is I come across many of this the VP sale, for example, you're an employee, you work for a startup, you take stock option, 2-3 years down the road, they exercise their stock option. If you work for 5 companies in the lifespan of 10 years, you probably make the same money. Probably that don't happen in Asia, but it's very common in the US. So there are many ways to make money. You need not be an entrepreneur, but become an entrepreneur, start early, ideally, because you have no rental to pay. You have somebody will cook your dinner. You don't need a car. Okay, something like that. Think about that. When you have many payroll to pay, you're always the last one that you will never get paid. And month after month and after month. Be prepared for the journey. It's not a destination.
Anything to say?
I think that the corporate world shouldn't be shut down, because I was part of the corporate world for many years. We were all earning fat paychecks, right? And then suddenly we got no paycheck. Then we got to pay ourselves. Whatever we pay ourselves, as Greg says, you pay everybody and you pay yourself. And usually, you wonder what you're doing. But there are a lot of things you can take away from the corporate world. Okay. First thing I can think of are all the friends, the networks, the people that I know. They are the ones that still help me till today. I mean, I can call them and say, hey, and you never underperform yourself, because everybody knows you by your branding. So they know you by your work, they know you by your branding, whether you are going to be in corporate or as an entrepreneur. People fund you because they believe in you. So if you were a lousy person in the corporate world, who's going to fund you? Nobody wants to believe in you. So I think the network and your own branding, even in the corporate world, is very important. The second thing that I took away from the corporate world, which I never, regret, is the rigor of thinking. How the corporate world, when they look at things, the thinking is complete and very rigorous. They analyze something, they would have all the right processes, so you study the processes. Because in an entrepreneurial environment, hopefully you become so good, it becomes intuitive. But then those processes are inside you and people don't know that you're already doing it, you see. But when you ask your staff to do it, the staff come up with 2 pages and say, what the heck is this? I remember when I did it, I did a proper cost-benefit analysis. And now as a CEO, I do it, I have to churn my own spreadsheets, and people don't understand my spreadsheets because you know what, my spreadsheets have got macros and everything else. But that didn't come from where that came from, working in corporate. But those things then put me in a different stead when I go for funding, because when I speak to VCs, I speak to back to listed companies that fund, they know I'm speaking their speak. You see, I'm not speaking a small time speak, I'm speaking corporate speak, but I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah, the trained and untrained is very different.
I just want to add that I think the point's very good. I think also that corporates, 80% of the world's people work in the corporate world. So it's not a bad word, number one. Number two is that temperamentally there are many of us who will do very well in that environment. Apart from it being a training ground. Entrepreneurship is a bit of a crazy word. It's not meant for everybody also. So there's also this myth. I don't know that came across very clearly when the people asking me shooting the video. There's a myth of the entrepreneur hero or heroine who's like going on a changing. It happens to very few people. It does happen. It is a rewarding journey, but it's also a tough thing. So it's not necessarily. There's a path for everybody in a way. And some people will really do well because they like the structured environment. They like to say, listen, I am in control of this, I will do well in it. For the same reason that some people are creative directors in an advertising agency and some people do very well in the army. We are different people. So you should all, one thing I would urge you all is don't go into something because it's the in thing to do it. Okay, let's all start a startup and do something cool thing. It's not that. You've got to find out what really you want to do and I think you've got to then say, where best can I utilize that talent? And if that's the corporate world, there are a lot of, all my best friends work in corporate. Every one of them is a banker or a person in technology or whatever it is. They're all great guys. So.
The only thing you shouldn't be is in the academic world.
You
Hi, my name is Gabriel, and this question is an open question actually. For someone who has an idea, right, but lacks the technical expertise to actually execute this idea, what advice would you give to such a budding entrepreneur?
Sorry, your question is,
if someone has an idea but lacks the technical expertise, what advice would you give about how he goes about executing the idea?
Find a co-founder. And most investors actually like to see a co-founder, right? And if you go to those like founder institute, for example, they actually want you to have a co-founder. Go find one, then you come in at that class. You cannot start alone. Because remember, the max 1 + 1 is equal to 2. 2 smart brain will make a company better. And always good. If you have technology business, you need a technical person. And that technical person, if he is co-founder, then he need not draw salary. Remember that.
All right, thank you very much.
Hi, I have a question that is addressed to all three speakers. Can you share with us some of the mistakes that you have made in your entrepreneurship journey so that we can learn from it?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Can you share with us some of the mistakes that you have made in your entrepreneurship journey so that we can learn from it or avoid making the same?
Too many to come.
Don't give up majority control too soon. Because I think the thing is that if you really believe in something, right, and obviously we all need money. I mean, all of us do. I mean, I'm sure my fellow speakers, including, Prof. Pam, you need to go and cash out. You need to find money. I mean, you don't draw a salary. It's fun for some while. After a while, your children run away, your dog run away. You have to draw. So the thing is that you still need it, but the problem is that when you cash out too soon, or you sell part of your company to the wrong type of investors, just because you're so desperate, right? And you lose control of the company. Essentially, then you have very little say what they do with it, So, in my case, I mean, able to restart because able to. And you have to be really clever about your legal agreements, what you agree to and what you don't agree to, and get things to be able to. But if you had sold out, majority very quickly and they took control and basically you're not left with the voice to do what you need to do, it, as an entrepreneur, is really, really, really very frustrating. Really very frustrating.
I was actually going to answer the previous question, and I think I just wanted to do that because it's very important. Because some of you will be business people looking for a technical co-founder or partner. There will be other people who are technical people who need a business thing. The best businesses in the world need those two skill sets. Whether it's Wozniak for Jobs, or whether it's Steve Ballmer and Paul Allen for Bill Gates, or whether it's Mark Zuckerberg saying, I'm a technical guy, I need Sheryl Sandberg to actually run it. You need the other side. You need both sides of the story to work. So I think it's all about actually trying to find that in a team. One person cannot do it all. So while it's, I think about, you said you're a business person looking for technical, I think it equally works the other side. Some of you maybe, I can write this code, but I need somebody on the other side. Mistakes, I think, majority control was something that I was very particular about, so I made sure I didn't give it away. But I think that, you get a lot of advice. I mean, to me, the worst things I did was when people would come and say, I think you should be doing this, and then you get pulled off track, and then you realize that you lost your sense of where the company should be going. I mean, it's good to listen to advice and to do that, but the worst mistakes I did was when I actually went off track on the basis of somebody else's advice, which inside I felt is not the right thing to do. I think somewhere, like I said, you've got to have that inner beacon that telling you this is the right thing, avoid this, keep going like this. And it's probably that, for me, the biggest mistakes that I made every time was when I had an inner voice telling me, don't do this, and I went ahead and did it anyway. I regretted it every time. I wanted to hire somebody who was the greatest. I mean, my team said we need an analytics guru. We went and found somebody. We wanted to hire that thing, and I said something not right. Did it? Mistake. It wasn't the person who said, it's just that, it's not right for you. So I think you'll have to, for me, my one thing is if there's something not sounding right, don't do it.
For mistake.
Woman is called woman's instinct.
I think for mistake is entrepreneur, you must also know when you start, you must know when to stop when it doesn't work. I think it's very difficult to actually know when to stop. Because if you try and the technology is aging, okay, and you try to reinvent, but still nobody going to put the money in. So I think the sign is there, but if you do not stop, you run out of cash, what happens? You use your money to fund. You cash out your life policy. You use credit card borrowing, that's where your trouble comes. So you must know when to stop when it doesn't work. And I cannot tell you more, but when you have a problem, send me an email.
Hi, my name is Arnav. All of you give us pretty motivating speeches about why and how one should become an entrepreneur. But I feel entrepreneurship is not everyone's piece of cake, and when and how does one realize that? And when do we stop, with the bamboo shoot? Like, when do we realize that the bamboo will never grow?
When you go back home, when there's no money to buy bread the next day, and you don't see any way of kind of making next month's expenses, that might be one time. No, I mean, it's hard because sometimes, again, I think, there's this famous definition of a hero and a coward. A hero is a coward. I mean, all of us are cowards actually, but you just was heroic for 1 second longer. So sometimes it's that 1 second longer that makes the difference. So it's very hard to say you have to stop. And I really think this is about knowing inside how much you're going to push it, or you have to feel inside, what, it ain't working. This ain't working, I have to try something else. It's an inner voice. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm going back to something that I can't quantify, but it is about knowing that this is not working and then saying, I have to either stop this or do something else.
Okay, I actually like Suresh's thing about the inner voice a lot. He still talked about that quite a lot today. I actually know somebody, right? I just give an example, and this guy was a Singaporean very young actor, impressed me no end. He said to me, he said, Norma, when I wanted to become an actor, I had to figure out whether I can take the journey as a graduate from NUS. So he then said that I'm going to eat roti prata every day for 5 months. I don't know what happened to his state of health after that. But he said, because roti prata was the cheapest thing in the market that I can eat, and whatever number of cents it was, and I'm going to eat that for every day for 5 months, and I'm going to figure out if I can eat roti prata every day for 5 months, I can become an actor at the end. And he did it, because at the end of 5 months he said that, you know what, through the worst of times, for goodness sakes, surely I can make $10 a day, right? So when do you give up is at the end of it is, this part of you is that says that, shit, if I don't do this, I'm going to die. And I cannot die without doing this. So somewhere in that, if you are really, 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 very clearly an entrepreneur, and not a tikam person, then you would stick to it somehow. And yeah, I mean, there will come a time when it's difficult. Obviously, you have children to feed and all that. You've got to find all those solutions too. I mean, those are realities. I mean, in my case, I went in, sometimes it didn't work, I had to cut it, I had to sell it, blah, blah, blah. I went back to corporate for a while, save up enough the money, then come back. Like BCA, can try again. You know why? Because if you're really an entrepreneur, you don't give up. You just bide the time, wait for the opening, and you will re-enter. It's never finished. It's just there. You just never give up.
Margot, you have a question? Okay, this is the second last question.
My name is Margot. I have a question directed to Miss Norma, and as well as Prof. Actually, it's quite applicable. I think it's not very relevant to the substance at hand, more of how has being an entrepreneur or a career woman negatively impacted your other roles, such as being a mother, and what advice would you give to girls wishing to be entrepreneurs?
Tell you in class.
Actually, it shouldn't be different for the guys, you know, no longer. To be fair, right, I think the men also need to begin to look after the families and so on and so forth. And so if you had married a horrible MCP that doesn't take care of the family, so in the first place you made the wrong decision already. So that's why you're So if, assuming on the assumption that you didn't, then you know, I would say that your family must understand their roles at home. I delegate roles as well. My children know their roles, and they have tasks that are delegated to them, and they conduct their tasks. It is not, I don't think it should be any different, because if you ask me to choose between my business and my family, let's say that decision never came, the decision would never be like that anyway, because we all live in spaces of time. You know? So for this moment, my son may be the most important thing. I must deal with it. The work can wait. And another day, the work is very important, and they must understand today is a day that the work takes precedence, and you are not taking precedence, and you better understand that. So we live in these slices of time. So it's not like, oh, this is more important than that. No, I mean, you have a slice of my time, and in that slice of my time in my life, at that moment, you are the most important thing. And business is one of those slices. That's how I look at it.
Norma said something that I think is very important, and that's the person you marry. And I'm a single person now. I know. Read her book, yeah? Read my two books. Yeah. So I think at your age, yeah, man or woman, your spouse is really important. Okay, because it determines your path. It really does. If you have a supportive spouse, right, you can have the kind of career that you can dream of. Otherwise, you will have an alternative career. You can still be happy with it. So, and I've seen so many of my students, yeah, have their lives destroyed because of relationship problem. Marrying the wrong guy, marrying the wrong woman, that kind of problem. So, don't know how to tell you how to find the right spouse, but that's very important.
I'm just going to provide a different perspective to that answer from the male side, right? And you know, I'm going to kind of agree with a couple of things they said. My wife supported some of the things that, you know, she was working in corporate jobs, so she actually paid the bills for a couple of years when I had absolutely nothing coming in the door. And that worked wonderfully well, right? You know, and sometimes I think it's not just a woman versus that, and you know, everybody makes choices about what they do, and I think you have to be in a relationship which works and is balanced. And I think that's not just at home, but I think it's in the corporate that you work for. And one of the standing rules that we had in Red Bull was that if there was a family problem, it took precedence over work. It didn't matter whether you're a man or a woman or whatever it is. He just said if that person has to get up and go home, it doesn't matter. Somebody else will fill that gap. It was just it wasn't an expressed articulated rule, but it was a practice that if you had to be home for something, you had to be home. It didn't matter what you were. I have been in a meeting, and I actually shared this experience, when I'm sitting with this guy, and he gets a call, he's making a presentation to a client, we're finishing a project, and he gets a call saying his father passed away. And you know, I mean, it is the most terrible moment of my entire Red Bull thing. I mean, as a guy, but I'm just saying, everybody faces these pressures. But when you have a culture in a company that says family is more important, that we can all manage this, I think you will actually find that balance works, whether you're a man or a woman, that environment lets you succeed, if you will. It's very hard to find those environments, but you know, the truth is that actually as you search for a good spouse, search for a good company that will provide that balance.
Actually, corporate life is not different, you know. In fact, corporate life can be as tough. You can get an email from your boss at 12 midnight, and the boss can expect a response at 12:05. You know, get a BDM, you know, it's worse, because you know what, the chairman of all these Singapore GLCs, guess what, they do send out emails at 1 o'clock in the morning from halfway around the world, and our ministers too, by the way, and then when they send the email to some of our ministers, to the CEOs of the stat boards, they have to reply. 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, that's the kind of life, there's a pace, you're on a 24-hour clock. So that's reality. So you don't say no to it, but then you say how do you yourself measure it. So there are times that my son has a concert when he was studying in Malaysia at that time. When I was halfway around the world, I would fly back for the concert and then go back because that was important to him at 5 years old. And to me that was therefore important. And I had to do that. And I said, look, for 3 days you guys have to do this, I got to do that, and I'll be back. But you somehow manage. And what Suresh is saying is that essentially the company has to be able to say to you, your family event should have at least equal weight if you deem it so. But not if, like, for example, the cat lost a nail and then you think that's a family event. I mean, there are people who are like that, okay? And for those people, you feel like, ugh.
Last question.
Hi, my name is Jonathan, and this question is open to all three speakers. All of you made this switch from the corporate life to being your own boss. How great is it being your own boss, or how challenging is it? Yeah.
So could you repeat that? Wasn't very clear.
Oh, all of you made the switch from corporate life, like working for someone, to being your own boss of your own company. How great is it being your own boss, and or is it very challenging in that sense?
It's slightly overrated, this whole thing of being your own boss.
Say again?
It's slightly overrated, the idea of being your own boss. You have to realize it's also very lonely. And there are moments you don't know who to turn to. In a corporation, there are you can go and talk to somebody, you can have a cup of coffee. When you're the boss, when there are people saying, oh my God, will the company survive next week with this guy? It is a very lonely thing. So it's a bit. I really want to tell you guys, entrepreneurship. There's a lot of myth and hype about it. It's another job. It's a job that you turn up and try and do well. And you do it for yourself. And all you're trying to do is you're trying to say, this time I want to have greater control of this thing, because then I hopefully do it very well. Whereas if I work in a corporate, I don't have that much control, So I think being your own boss is a bit overrated. Sometimes it's easier, if somebody tells you what to do, I do it.
But surely it has its perks, right? At times, being your own boss has its perks.
Actually, it is exactly the reverse.
Oh.
I have to turn up. Not necessarily literally, but I have to be the first to enter, the last to leave. If I expect people to say, when you get an email, answer it, I have to set that example. There are no perks that come with being your own boss. It is a constant pressure to be the person that you want everybody else in the company to be. I think that's my personal experience.
Including traveling budget airlines. Because if you want your team to save money and not be, spending anyhow, I used to travel business class, that was my right. I have a right to stay in 5 or 6 star hotels, okay? Now, I have a right to travel cow class. Okay, I'm a startup, right? Okay, budget hotel. If I want to do anything more, even if I tip out from my own pocket to top up, to upgrade or whatever, then my team doesn't realize that it doesn't work. So this thing about your own boss as an entrepreneur, I don't think so. Actually, you work harder. Because guess what? If the company fails, it's your company, your money, your family's money, blah, 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 right? If you're working in corporate, okay, you're the boss. I come in, my PA is there, everything is in order. They have to perform because behind me, the corporate structure is there. I have the power of the corporate structure. If you start your own company, you suddenly realize how little power you have, because you basically have to ensure that people do the things that you do and they don't leave at the wrong time. So the power actually shifts. We don't tell this to the staff, but actually the power shifts. It actually shifts over where your role is how do you get people to do what they need to do to perform without you having this big huge brand like, Google or something like that, where everybody gets attracted to automatically, or Oracle.
Let me also tell you the other thing. I used to sit in IBM and bitch about why the senior guys somewhere don't get it. When I was my own boss, I couldn't bitch. I mean, what will I do? I would say, this guy doesn't know how to run the company. So, it's way tougher. It's a way tougher.
I'd like to answer your question, Nick. Isn't hard and fast rule, depending on what stage you are. Corporate life is very predictable. As long as you do well, you get rewarded, either commission or bonus or promotion, right? So if you fly more than 6 hours, you get to go to the front deck of the plane, for example, right? But as a startup, depending on different stage of the startup, if you're starting, you're using stock option to pay people, then you're actually obligated to them that you cannot fail. If I fail, so what? These people help us free for 5 years, then what? So you have this thing, and then you raise a lot of money, then you could start to execute according to budget. Then the revenue don't come in, you adjust, you downgrade yourself, everything. So it's like a roller coaster. So be prepared for the journey. It's a journey, never a destination.
The last guy who got paid every month in my company was me, which means everybody had to be paid before you get it. You got to pay other people.
But you see, they won't exchange this for anything. And if I may add, you have no friends in the company. You just say people will gossip. They have their own small talk. And the moment you come, it is silence.
I have the best friends I have are the 54 people who work in Red.
Yeah. Maybe you're a man. They don't gossip with you. So it's like, and then you have to give up your social life as an entrepreneur because I don't know whether it's true for everybody. It's like most entrepreneurs do not have a social life. Your life is around your own company, and you cannot go out and drink with your friends. Maybe because I have too many kids. I have 5 kids, by the way. So I find that social life is affected when you start your own company. Basically, it's very hard to draw a line versus working for a corporate role.
True from a predictability standpoint, but I think, at least the corporate you can get out of office at the extent going home at 7 o'clock or whatever. Okay, the world is changing. But yeah, you're right. I think my wife could never plan a social evening for me as long as I was on my own. After I sold to IBM, a lot of other things. She'd say, okay, come home on Wednesday evening at 7:30, we're going for dinner, and I would be there. And I would just say, I'm not available. Which you can't say if you're not.
So, that's the last question.
Okay, thank
you. I think we have food out there, right? But before that.
We've come to the end of today's Q&A session. We'd like to thank our speakers for taking time out of the busy schedule to come down today. We will now invite Professor Pamela Lim to present our esteemed guests with tokens of appreciation.
We also have something for you. Antia from the organizing committee. Present a bouquet from both our classes.
Before we officially declare this guest seminar over, we would like to extend our greatest thanks to our food sponsors, CS Tay, as well as Hotspot Cafe, and SMUSA and ITS for the logistical support. We have come to the end of today's guest seminar. Please proceed outside for refreshments after the guest.